Hey guys, welcome to FPG. Today we're gonna take our last look at every single Warhammer 40k faction explained by Bricky. This series showed me so much of the 40k universe so far, but without further ado, let's get right into the video, shall we?
Let's talk about the Harlequins.
Here we go.
Clowns.
What's the matter, Andy? Don't you want to have some fun?
The Harlequins are a bizarre race of Eldar.
Shit.
They're demonic
already.
clown performers. They're like a weird mix of Sander Cohen from BioShock and Jin from League of Legends, but in a more clown theme. They're artists of death and perfecters of their craft. They do not belong to Craft Worlds or any of the weird Drukhari people. They guard something called the Black Library, which is this giant tome of never-ending knowledge deep in the heart of the Eldar Webway, and also guarded by their god named Kegarok, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He is the laughing god, but it's the Eldar's laughing god. And these are the Harlequins, the Harlequin clowns. These are Eldar clowns, okay? So imagine the things that an Eldar, these depraved individuals, would find funny. And this is the god of that. It's a horror clown.
So
These
like
are
the Joker
gods
in space,
of horror
huh?
for us normal people. For them, they're like, oh, it's so funny. They're all dying horribly. Honk, honk. They're very bizarre and difficult to describe. They've escaped the ruinous powers of Slanesh somehow, but their main thing is guarding that Black Library. And the Harlequins just... They're demon clown performers.
Hell
They're
yeah.
barely any models on the tabletop. They're good in melee.
I think the models don't really do them justice. The masks are a little, they look a little just attached on it. I think in the art and everything, they look much more fantastical, super amazing. I also have to say, I'm a little biased here because I love It. The movie It was amazing. I loved it. The original one. I also loved the remake. It was pretty good, in my opinion at least. It was super, super good. I'm also a huge fan of Harley Quinn ever since forever, basically. I got kind of the first comic issue still sealed of her. I have some collectibles. I always liked that anti-hero, like I said before, I like the funny style, but I also like the very brutal and usually anti-heroes like Deadpool or even Harley Quinn and stuff, they mix it up. And I always love this kind of Joker clownier style. It's the same with the Elder Scrolls god Sheogorath. He's kind of a clown, but he has a deeper backstory, and it's just funny and crazy all mixed together. I know there might be a little bit more to it here that I can see from now. But like I said before, can't there be a shitty race I don't like? Because that came basically out of the blue for me. I haven't really heard of the Harlequins before, like nowhere. Nobody ever mentioned them, I think. Maybe one person did, but I can't recall it right now. And they are just super cool. They seem super niche, but so cool. I think if the models looked a lot cooler, I might have even started collecting them. If there's a figurine or something that is a little, higher quality with cooler masks, I might buy that because I'm a sucker for this theme. I love it a lot. A lot.
They're demon clowns. I'm not sure. I got a quote.
I love it.
It is too easy for an Eldar to embrace the obscene virtues of chaos, for Slanesh is nothing more than a manifestation of the Eldar mind in its most wild and unconstrained form. Human morality is meaningless to the Eldar, and to the dark side of the Eldar mind, all life is to be expended at a whim. Cruelty and generosity are but the impulse of a moment. Beauty and sensuality are virtues that can be expressed in bloodshed just as easily as in song. To an unfettered Eldar mind, there is neither sanity nor madness, but merely a wave of perfect existence fulfilled by its own savage momentum.
Wow.
They're very strange.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I always like these, those quotes. They're pretty good. I like them a lot. But yeah, for these, I'm just, I'm a little biased. I love this theme just a lot. And yeah, That's pretty much. Oh, I also just thought about it. They are guarding this library. I think that's a cool, conundrum. That they are, as the crazy people, basically guard the huge knowledge. It is made like that in many series or universes. That the crazy guard the knowledge. Maybe the knowledge even made them crazy. It's just a cool theme overall. I love it, even though there isn't that much of it here.
The Harlequins, Drukhari, Eldar, they are an anomaly that make humans seem completely easy to understand in comparison. They range from rekindling their civilization to horrifying murder and also clowns. They are all over the place, but honestly, they represent quite well and are rather interesting, especially with the whole Slaanesh murdering everyone bit. So,
yes.
Yeah, Eldar. Now, bugs.
Oh, no.
Mom, they following me, Mom.
Yes.
They following me.
Following you!
The bugs.
The bugs!
The
Yes.
Tyranids. Now, you want to talk something a little more
Zerg
fun,
theme?
a little more simple than all this crazy Eldar shenanigans? Let's talk the Tyranids. They're bugs. Do they look like Zerg? Hell yeah, they look like
Yes.
Zerg. You want to know why they look like Zerg? Because
them.
they were actually supposed to be
Oh,
what
that's a cool
Zerg were.
artwork.
Apparently, StarCraft was supposed to be a 40k game in the beginning, hence why they look so much
Yes.
like Eldar, Zerg, and the Imperium of Man.
Yeah, I heard a lot about it. The community knew a lot more about this than me. I just saw the Tyranids very, very early, and I thought, man, that are the Zergs. And in games, especially StarCraft, I love the Zergs. I just love them. I love the theme of, eating the biomatter, evolving further, this huge swarm which goes just to evolve, to become better, to become stronger, and to just go on this primal instinct. But what I like also a lot about the Zergs is what the Queen of Blades brings to it. It's basically a consciousness, but also the Overmind that had one. There's a huge swarm mind basically, and it goes on and on and on. It is so interconnected, it is so cool. I think from what I heard, the Tyranids don't have that. It is sort of more primal, it's more like the raw instinct, less of an overmind kind of thing. But also we maybe don't know as much about it, because a lot of people said, we don't know a lot about the Tyranids. They're basically a mystery. They're outside of this galaxy. Maybe some people said they're surrounding, or they could be surrounding us, so it could be a lot more. And there's a lot we don't know about them. It sounded just so cool and interesting, and I hope there's a lot more about the Tyranids that the community doesn't know about them yet. Because for such an interesting race, I think they maybe have a little less, because they're so primal. They're not that, human and with deep lore like the others, because they basically came from outside and we don't know a lot about them. Yeah, those are my thoughts.
Like, kind of Space Marine-y.
Yeah,
Those
they're
Marines,
basically the
That's a little
same.
bit Space Marine-y to me. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. You really fucked up on that one, Games Workshop.
Just
didn't
remove
ya?
the skulls and
Tyranids
stuff.
are a giant infestation of unfathomable proportions. These are giant, extremely
I love the design,
bio-advanced
man.
hive mind organisms that are basically all about absorbing as much biomass as they possibly
Yes.
can to evolve and mutate to be extremely potent and powerful and kill and eat anything in their path. They are probably the least evil faction in all of 40k,
Yeah, they're
because
not
all
evil.
they want to do is
Just
eat shit.
instinct.
They want to nom nom the entire galaxy. They hangry
Yeah.
and we food. Also, this Tyranid hive mind has a presence in the warp. In fact, Tyranids
there's
in their
a hive
own
mind,
right
okay.
have a massive presence in the warp. They have a thing called the shadow in the warp specifically, where when they are coming in to invade a planet, they have this weird ability to kind of cut off the warp on all.
Okay, so we know about a hive mind, but it's not, like it is manifested in. Okay, it might be manifested maybe outside of this galaxy, in a hive somewhere. So consciousness that basically rules over them. But we don't know a lot about it, because the Tyranids are not very deep researched. Maybe like that. It sounds so cool, and I hope there's a lot more we will find out over the next years about the Tyranids and stuff like that. Maybe a game where we go on a super infested planet and find something out. Oh, man, I just wish there would be more. I for sure, I don't know a lot about it, but a lot of people said there just isn't that much deep lore about them because they're just this force from outside, basically. They're just basically, they're not like the xenomorphs, but like the xenomorphs in the story, you don't know anything about them. In Alien, they just come here and wreck your ass. And yeah, they're super interesting. I also love the xenomorphs a lot. That is basically where my love for the Zerg came from in the first place. Yeah, they come from out there. You don't know anything about them, but over the movies, even though the quality of the movies, with time, but you learned a lot about the history and stuff like that. Maybe it will be like that with the Tyranids. I hope so, man. I hope there will be more deep story and stuff
All
explained.
the psychers on that planet. And how do you get help across the stars? Well, you need the warp, because you need that for interstellar travel.
Yes.
So with people unable to call for help from the Tyranids, these are just easy pickings. And an entire
love the
giant
design.
Tyranid hive fleet comes out of orbit and just will massacre, absorbing all that biomass and turning
Jeez.
them and all of their other Tyranids into even more advanced monsters. They come in
cool.
so many varieties too, all based on what is important. Tiny little ripper swarms for scouting and having little dudes eat people up,
With
to the
Zerglings.
Hormagaunts, Termagants, and Gene Stealers, all the way to the Hive Guard and the
Stealers.
Exocrines and the Swarm Lord, to Hive Tyrants and their giant battle fleets, and even something as crazy as the Hierophant Bio Titan. The Tyranids come in all forms and sizes depending on what they require. They are
In StarCraft, I don't know if any of you really played StarCraft because it's of the copy-paste thing. But in StarCraft 2, Heart of the Swarm, that was my favorite expansion ever. You went to the home planet of the Zerg, and there were also huge Zerg, like monstrous kind of things. The primal beings are also those worms that will, you use as a gateway basically into bases and stuff like that. But there's such huge creatures and interesting stuff, man. I played Heart of the Swarm for like couple 100 hours. It was so good. I 100%ed the whole thing. I just love Zerg.
extremely good at anti-biological weaponry. There is no way you can plague them or blight them. They have extremely strong armor, carapaces and such. Tyranids are nigh perfect organisms and are pretty
So cool.
spooky when it comes down to how they handle all of their genetic material. Keep feeding them, they'll keep evolving. They keep on creating new
That looks like
horrifying
Predator,
organisms
man.
to spread across the galaxy. And you want to know what the most terrifying part of the Tyranids is? We might be surrounded. There have been around
that's
6
what I
or
heard.
7 Tyranid hive fleets, Behemoth, Kronos, all these different kinds of hive fleets, and they've all arrived in the galaxy from different points. Different sections of the Milky Way galaxy
Yeah, that's
have had
suspicious.
different Tyranids come through. And that is horrifying, because as far as we know,
So interesting,
we
though.
could just be surrounded on all sides
so
by
cool.
Tyranids. The only reason you may not hear a whole lot about Tyranids is because it's a little bit hard to have a bunch of story off of
They don't leave
one hive mind
one
genocidal monsters. All these giant bugs swarming in, killing and eating everybody and evolving. I mean, as cool as there are some cool characters, the Swarm Lord, Old One Eye, you can't really have a whole bunch of major character-based stories around them.
Sadly.
As awesome as they are, they're simple. They want to eat you. They want to eat you and absorb your biomass. They are simple bugs. If you want something a little more complex, talk Gene Stealer cults.
I can have all the pot I want, I get around faster than walking, and wherever I need a seat, I can just sit on my balls.
Gene
Yeah,
Stealer cults are a special
Stanley
brand of
Marsh.
Tyranid that can slowly infect themselves into different kinds of society. And by infecting them, they can rise up to where they all pray and believe in these regular humans, pray and believe into their Tyranid hive mind gods. And these brood lords and I think they're called patriarchs all can turn an entire world all based into Gene Stealers.
And that's
these
so
are called
cool.
Gene Stealer cults. An entire hive world of the
I'm very sad that StarCraft doesn't have that. The coolest thing I did in StarCraft, it also was in Heart of the Swarm, you know, my favorite ever expansion of the game. You planted like a xenomorph, basically a facehugger egg into someone. It was a larva, I think, of a queen, and then the ship went away, teleported them on the ship. You broke out, infected the ship, started your basically small hive with your queen, and you took over the ship of the Protoss back then, just to ride it to the home world to infect the whole home world. I thought it was such you know, a great mission, amazing mission, so well made. Man, I just wish they had more of that. That's so cool. I love that, you know, that part.
Imperium can be turned into nothing but servants of the Tyranid masters just by infecting them and screwing with their genetic code a little bit.
That's so cool.
They also have this cool like Mad Max look, which is really neat. They are definitely one of the bigger threats to the Imperium besides Chaos. I keep saying biggest threats to the Imperium.
Chaos.
They're up there though, because you, dingus, stepped on a bug in middle school. Asshole.
Yeah.
There is a cancer eating at the Imperium. With each decade, it advances deeper, leaving drained, dead worlds in its wake. This horror, this abomination, has thought and purpose that functions on an unimaginable galactic scale. And all we can do is to try to stop the swarms of bioengineered monsters it unleashes upon us by instinct. We have given the horror a name to salvage our fears. We call it the Tyranid race. But if it is aware of us, it must know us as nothing but prey. Tyranids.
Nice.
They're cool. But are they as cool as the orcs?
Oh god, I heard a lot about it. Not in detail.
Orcs, 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 orcs,
People
orcs,
love
orcs, 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 orcs.
Okay.
Orcs. I fucking love orcs. So, yes, the green monsters, the green tide, the
Tell me
green
about 'em.
skins. These orcs, they are in fact a race in 40k. The orcs are as exactly what you expect
So
them.
cool,
They
fantasy,
have archaic weapons, they're big
sci-fi.
boys, they have axes, and they have got big old teeth, and they want to kill everything, and there are so many of them. The only reason they haven't taken over the entire galaxy is they can't stop murdering each other.
They seem so out
Orcs
of
are
place,
so cool.
and I love
Orcs
it.
don't have philosophy. Orcs don't have existential crisis. What
Violent
matters is
orc.
who's the biggest orc. You listen to that guy, because he the biggest orc. He big orc.
Smart.
Big orc knows best. You
Looks
win
so-
through the power of imagination. Of all the races I have battled throughout the galaxy, the orc is the hardest to comprehend. They wage war with machines that should not work, care little for strategic gains, and are just as likely to slaughter each other as the enemy.
Oh
How does
my
one
gosh.
battle an enemy that defies all logic? As an orc, you're enjoying
can.
life. You're enjoying the life you're given. Your whole life and job and purpose is to get up.
Yeah, that's what I get from the orcs, or what I got from what everybody said. They're basically the only people happy in this universe, because everyone else, maybe besides the Tyranids, you know, they're pretty happy too, but very conscious people, they're basically the only ones that are pretty happy because their life is great. They can battle all the time, and that's what they like. They can just enjoy their life in this universe. Everybody else, it's always said nobody want to live in the 40k universe. Those guys, they're just having a great time, you know, having the time of their life, enjoying everything. Must be great to be an orc, you know? Must be great.
And beat each other to death because you can.
That's so nice.
The biggest orc is the man who understands everything.
Big
He is the
Zuzu.
boss. And orcs have this really weird, like, big, dumb, stereotype British accent, which
Okay.
is just hilarious to me. Those are orcs. You fight. You like to fight.
Sure.
Your whole purpose is to fight. You wage war because you want to wage war. You got your boss over there, and you better listen to the boss, because if you don't listen to the boss will squish you and make you an example for the other orcs. And then you can't
The
fight
other.
because orc dead. And orc dead can't fight because the orc dead. Orcs. They
Big smart.
scrap together machines out of parts that don't make any sense, and because they
Oh,
believe,
no.
they have the mental imagination that that machine will run, it'll run. If that machine's out of gas, you're driving that machine with your fellow orcs, and the biggest orc is behind the wheel, and you run out of gas, some orc behind you like, oh, oh, Zog, we're out of gas.
Zog.
And the big orc is like, no, we're not. I filled the fucking gas tank up earlier. And all the other orcs are like, oh yeah, you did do that. And then you turn the fucking mech back on and it works again. Does it have gas? Probably not.
Most
but it
broken
works.
power in the universe.
The power of imagination. They paint things red because it makes them think they goes faster. They paint things purple because it's the sneakiest color. You want to know why? You ever seen a purple orc?
Nope.
Didn't fucking think so. Orcs are also like ancient as hell. They're back in the Eldari time frame. But back then they were called Krorks, and they were much larger and scarier and far more intelligent. Now they're just orcs.
Is there a background to them? Why they're not dumb, but you know what I mean, eh? A lot more stupid now, basically. Because that would be a very cool backstory. If you see the backstory why the orcs are like that now and were very different before that, I think that could be a pretty intense, cool story. I also love about the orcs that they're basically the comic relief of the universe, you know? I don't like... not I don't like it, but it is so much the case that universes, games just take themselves too seriously. And it is okay, it works in some games, but as I said many times before, I love on one side the brutal, bloody, whatever, but I also love super funny, comic relief, doesn't take itself seriously. I don't like that what Disney does basically with the new Star Wars movies, with the blue milk jokes, throwing away the lightsaber, stuff that doesn't really seem to fit, you know? I don't like those jokes at the wrong times that don't fit. But if there's an entire race, just comic relief, it just fits, you know? It is in the lore embedded, it is there, it just fits. Okay, then it's perfectly fine, it's amazing. That's why also stuff like Hellsing OVA is my favorite anime of all time. Just because it's super bloody, gory, everything like that, but it also has just stupid jokes here and there, and they fit. They fit where they are. It's perfectly fine. It is basically established in the beginning. Just, I love the duality, you know, from very bloody to very... It can be either very bloody and just very funny, but I love the mixture, a lot more of it's together, and the universe doesn't take itself too seriously from the outside. If there's just funny jokes, you know, stuff like that. And I think also a race like the Orcs might develop players or people that love the universe, that take everything a bit more lightly, that bring just a good mood into the community, you know, because if you play that race, man, you're just having a great time. You're most likely a jokester that doesn't take everything too serious. I think orc players usually, you know, those are just cool guys. Nothing else. It's just like that.
And they're big.
They like to have fun.
Things, but they're pretty spooky.
That's what I imagine of
They're
least.
not very well armored, but they hit really hard, and it's called the Green Tide because there are so many orcs. There are about as many orcs as there are Tyranids, maybe more. Who knows? But they keep on, you know, murdering each other.
In this galaxy, right? Not with the
orcs
other galaxies.
Are entirely comic relief.
Yes,
Their stuff
exactly.
is slapped together that makes no sense. Their vehicles don't work the way they're supposed to, but they work because they think it works, because they imagine that it works.
Pirate
Orcs
heads,
care
man.
only about who is the biggest orc, and they will follow the biggest orc. And then if they want to be the biggest orc, they'll challenge the biggest orc. And then when they go and they issue a wa is just war in orc, they murder everybody and everything in this giant tide of green orcs who are just excited to be hitting something. They don't care that they're hitting Eldar or the Imperium or Tau or anyone in between.
They're just
so they get to beat shit up. That's orcs. And on the tabletop, they are a total coin flip, and they're really fun. I have never met a salty orc player.
Yeah, that's what I imagine.
I have never met someone who plays orcs and is ever just a bad guy or
just having
that
fun,
guy.
Man.
Orc players have this kind of fun to them because when you play them, you are completely submitting yourself to RNG. So here's the thing. Guardsmen, Imperial Guardsmen, when they shoot, they roll a dice, and on a 4 up, they'll hit their target. They have a 50% chance. Space Marines, pretty good. They hit on a 3 or higher because they're well trained. Adeptus Custodians, they hit on 2s because they're just super well trained.
Yeah.
Orcs, they hit on a 5 or
What?
higher. But if they roll a
Oh my
6,
God.
they get to make another shot.
Oh my
with
God.
Anything from the dinkiest.
You know, I love this race a lot, but I couldn't play that. Because if I play a board game, you know, I know how rarely I hit 5 or 6. I just never roll a 5 or 6. I couldn't play that. But I imagine, again, if people play that and you only hit like that, those people are, you know, they're just having fun. They're there for their life. And either they completely lose and don't do anything in the game, or they completely wreck ass. And that will be the time of their life, you know? That is just, from one game, you're taking, beating left and right. You're not balanced at all. You're just basically random coin flip all the way. And that people that play like that always, in any game, video game, whatever, those people are usually the most chill and fun people to be around. They're just, you know, having fun, even though people get very salty if they lose just to RNG, you know? The enemy of them, the opponent, might be very pissed if they just lose hard to all the RNG, but the players themselves are usually the most chill. In TCGs, whatever, they're usually most chill players there are.
Pistol to the biggest rocket launcher.
I love it.
It doesn't matter. Half of their stuff will blow up on a whim. One of their
That's so
medics,
stupid,
if you
man.
roll a 1 to heal someone, you fuck up your surgery and you just kill an orc. They're
Kill the orc.
so wacky and silly. But the thing is if you roll well, you roll high, and you keep rolling high, you are going to crush.
I couldn't play,
people.
but I love that they
And
exist.
if you don't, you lose. I mean, that's what you get when you play orcs. That's what happens when you play orc. It's a coin flip.
Yeah, you know what
Which
you're
is why
getting.
you can't be a salty bitch when you play orcs, because things won't go your way. It's just the roll of the dice. You're playing a dice game. But if you're gonna have fun and you want to be stupid and you want to be silly, you're gonna play some
Same
damn
in
orcs.
TCGs with.
But on the opposite side of the fun part of this, let's talk about the Necrons.
Okay, the Egyptians.
The Necrons are spooky, scary skeletons and very grimdark again. They have a much more fleshed out lore than before. Back in the day, they were just undead Egyptian space terminators, and they still look that way, but now they actually have a story. So way back in the day, you had the Necron tier. Kind of see a theme here, Eldari, Eldar.
So were they then retconned or just expanded upon later? Like I Wish for the Tyranids, kinda, you know? Know what I'm saying?
Krork, Orc, Necron, Necron tier. So the Necron tier were this race of generally
Oh, good.
kind of shitty people. Not because they were personally shitty, because their lives were awful.
He looks
They were
very hungry.
ill-fated to a horrible existence of like radiation and a terrible planet they lived on, and everything just really sucked. Being a Necron tier was just really depressing. They really were looking for immortality.
Oh, man.
They were extremely reliant on the hope that they would eventually find the key to living forever and just stave off this horrible nature that they were thrust upon them, and therefore they could become the most dominant race in the galaxy. And they found this group. They're called the Old Ones. Imagine them kind of like the Forerunners in Halo or the Xel'Naga in StarCraft, right?
Oh,
These
yeah,
Old Ones
sure.
were these strong, pretty much omnipotent beings. And they, of course, knew the key to immortality. So the Necrons went to them and said, please, show us your ways. And the Old Ones said, piss off. Not really, they were a lot more humble about it, but they did not want to share their secret of immortality with the Necrons. The Necrons, of course, took this very well
Yeah, I can imagine.
and waged war with them, kind of under this united banner. The Necron different dynasties didn't really like each other, but under this one man, the Silent King, he thought the best way to unite his race was to do this giant war with the Old Ones out of spite for them keeping the secret of immortality to them. This was known as the War in Heaven, and this is actually like a multi-stage war. Because during this war in heaven, they discovered the Star Gods, a whole new race of people known as the Catan, or the Catan. These Star Gods were also very much like old ones, almost omnipotent beings, and they too had the key to immortality. And so the Necrons went to them and said, hey, can you help us fight off the old ones? Can you help us kill these old ones, you, the Catan? And the Catan said yes. And in fact, we can help provide you with the immortality you so desperately seek.
You know, that sounds really bad. That sounds really bad. Usually, if there's a plot like this, it is the first people they go to, they keep the key of immortality for themselves, maybe for a good reason. And then they're tempting the others that say, yes, of course. But you didn't read the fine print, did ya? And then they're fucked. And I feel a bit you are fucked coming.
So the Silent King of the Necrons decided to make a pact with the Catan to allow them to accept this generous gift of immortality upon them. But this, of course, had been a horrendous trap.
Yeah,
and the Necrons were dragged in chains to this biotransference where their flesh was stripped from them, replaced with nothing but a metal hollow shell, as their souls were ripped from their body and fed to the Catan. And the Catan fattened up.
I mean, it's super badass, you know? It is so badass, but it sucks so bad for the race. You feel what they lost, but it's just so badass. You are happy that it happened. It's bad to feel this way, but the story is so cool that happened to them, and they're now super space terminators, Egyptian space terminators. It's so cool.
They got chonk on the souls of the Necrons.
Oh my God.
As this was their plan all along, they consumed the flesh and souls of the Necron tier and turned them all into unwilling robotic slaves to serve their will. And then with their new-founded Necron army, they pointed their guns at the old ones, and the Catan continued their domination of the stars and their genocide, complete and full genocide of these old ones. The old ones did their best to stave it off. They even created other races, the Eldari and the Orcs, to try to fight off the horrifying Necron army and the Catan above them. But there was absolutely no possible chance for them. And the old ones were absolutely extinguished across the galaxy. Their entire race completely removed. Full-on 100% genocide. However, during all this, the Catan, so just infatuated with their victory.
You know, those are a lot of sci-fi stories, that there's this one race and then they got wiped out by... You know, that is a lot more on the nose than others. Mostly it is, you find out there was a virus or something that they create, but they're always creating something. Here they said no to immortality. We won't give you that, and that is what killed them in the end. In others, there's mostly they created a virus or plague or anything that killed them, or a race that killed them in the end. That's a very normal sci-fi plot, but I think here it's a lot more fleshed out, a lot more badass, very cool made, very intense, and I love it. I love it. It is, man. I said it in the last video, you know, I wish there would be some races that sucked, but they are all so cool, but just in very, very different ways. I really don't like any of the races for the same reason as another race. I always like them for very different kind of thing, and that's very good. That means that they're very fleshed out, that they're very cool in itself, and they don't need all the same marks that people can relate to or enjoy. It's, man.
started fighting each other for fun, for sport, and for small differences, doesn't matter. The Catan, with these overpowered people, they're going to eventually hit each other at some point. And as they began just menially fighting each other, the Eldari and the Orcs actually started pushing on the Catan's borders a little bit, giving them a little bit of a run for their money. And as this continued, this is when the Silent King, who retained his consciousness, decided to leap into action and start a full-scale revolt against their Catan masters. And this revolt was bloody, as the entire Necron army was surged off to destroy these star gods. They were able to, just after suffering horrendous losses, were able to turn the tide of the war. And they took these Catan and they blasted them. Because as these star gods are unkillable, they were able to break them into thousands of shards and entrap them in giant stasis vaults to now actually be slaves to the Necrons.
Oh, do they give the energy to their weapons?
The entirety of their old gods enslaved to them, they realized that soon their race was about to be attacked by the overcoming new races, the Eldari and the Krorks. And so what they did is they retreated into giant stasis tombs in order to preserve their energy and their...
But wouldn't they be a lot more advanced, and now with the enslaved star gods basically broken and overpowered and destroyed them? Isn't it better to... I know they're basically put in the story later to flesh them out, but from a story perspective, it would be a lot easier to conquer them in the beginning after their creation than very, very much later when they're already far more developed and catching up to you. I'm pretty sure that is what we would go for, you know? Just strike now when they're in their early stages and win, basically.
Strength for when one day they would be reawakened and they would be able to rule the galaxy that was rightfully theirs. And then some dingus Adeptus Mechanicus guy diddled with a green console, and now the Necrons are back, and they see all these primitive races on their lawns, and they think, get the fuck up.
No way, one person fucked it up for everyone? Is it really just one, you know, archaeologists going around on the planets? Oh, let's look at this. That is a nice tomb. Oh, what is this? Oh, let's click a button and activate the end of the universe. That is so stupid, and I love it. That guy was fired this day. Oh my god, he basically doomed the universe. That's so great. It's just like so many sci-fi things. So, you know, a group of adventurers goes around and just releases something completely stupid and broken, or it was, yeah, you know, we don't talk about Prometheus here. I know most people didn't like it, but it's just you stumble upon it and release something very bad that else would have maybe never made it and slumbered forever, you know?
Off of it. The Necrons are back. Super advanced, and they are
here
to reclaim the galaxy that they so rightfully believe is theirs. Now, at tabletop, they're a lot like that. Tons of undead Egyptian skeleton robots that when they die, they just get right back up because they keep on reanimating. Hard to kill, tons of crazy stuff. You can use the Catan themselves.
Yeah, that's what a friend told me when he got a little bit into it, that he bought Necrons because you need less of them. Because those small units are usually stronger than a lot of other small units, so you need less of them, in theory. I don't know if he was right about that, but this was his idea, because he just has, student money. He couldn't afford so much, so he thought he would buy Necrons and play Necrons, because you need less of them. And they're, stronger per, basically, figure.
As units to fight with. Pretty cool. The Necrons are one of the three major events in 40k. The Horus Heresy, the Fall of the Eldar, and the Awakening of the Necrons are all pretty substantial events. And the Necrons themselves are pretty dang cool as well.
I heard about the Horus Heresy. There is a video, I think, movie, kind of like maybe cutscenes, or fan project. A lot of people said I should watch it. I most likely will very, very soon. in one of the next videos, now that we got a lot of lore into, I wanted to do another cinematic series, maybe, or not cinematic, you know, but some either trailers or something like Astartes. One of those in between before we jump into the next big part of lore stuff.
Oh, here's a good quote from a wonderful Dawn of War game. Lucky creatures, as long last you have found the tranquility of death. I was like you once, clinging to life and blind to the truth. When I uncovered the truth, I too shuddered and paled with fear. Deep in these catacombs, I was remade. Here my brethren slumbered for eons while the living grew like weed. My Lord knew this day would come. He had plans for us all. We would purge this world once more. So come, poor victims of life. We will grant you tranquility in these crypts. Kronos will be a tomb world once more. Necrons are also pretty smug. Trays in the Infinite especially. A little dickhead.
Okay.
But speaking of dickheads, last race.
Dickhead race?
Let's talk the Tau.
We made a fucking walkie.
The exact formation of the Tau Empire is not entirely understood. However, a long time ago, many thousands of years ago, in the 40k world that is, some Imperial navigation vessels were going around through different areas, and they saw a primitive race, blue people, smacking each other with sticks and stones. They thought, dumb Xenos race, who gives a shit, and they bailed. Then this giant warp storm occurred right in that major area, unable to be breached. Then, once that warp storm 6,000 years later subsided, hello, those little sticks. Well, they decided to actually have no war of any kind and all just unite together under...
You know, that's also very, very interesting, but often used plot in sci-fi. It could be that a lot of places took it from here, because I think it's in Futurama and you know, a lot of fun sci-fi shows. And also the Orville, I think, I even saw that, where there are planets that are vanished from... or basically not vanished, but they're not be able to exit for 1,000 of years, and if they come back, they're usually this big united force, very advanced, much more advanced than partly the other races of the universe even. I think that's a very cool premise, but from the look of their ships and their armor, I can already see that it most likely will be the first race I'm not very into. Because I really like the style of Warhammer 40k so far. All of what is so different about Warhammer 40k than other fantasy, and not fantasy, sci-fi. But this looks very, very classical sci-fi, and I don't know if I will like them.
One flag of the Tau Empire, and now they have gigantic starships and Gundam robots and lasers and railguns and mechs, and they are here to ruin your day for the greater good. That is generally the Tau Empire. They have this kind of feeling of this homogenous group. All species can go underneath the banner of the greater good. The greater good is their idea of the fundamental increase and health of all. In fact, they are most likely the most like the Covenant in Halo, where they have the overarching prophets, being the Ethereals, who are actually kind of dicks and like to pull at strings a little bit, but then you have all these different races directly underneath them, and they all work together in this big group as this large, foreboding race that tries to spread their weirdly pseudo-religious influence across the galaxy. The alien is not intrinsically evil. Do not hate him. Pity him, his ignorance. Seek to understand his differences and equate him with his inadequacies. Only then will he accept his place in the greater good. That is generally the Tau.
You know, there might be a very cool race and very fun for some people, but man, it's just not my thing. Also the mechs, I know a lot of people like giant mechs, you know, all those mecha animes, whatever. I think it's even a complete genre, right? I think it is. It is a huge genre. The only mecha kind of anime stuff I ever seen was Neon Genesis Evangelion, and for everyone that has seen that, I'm pretty sure you know it was not because of the mech robots. It was because of a lot more than that. Yeah.
And if you're kind of wondering like what their mainly big shtick is, well, they're all about big robots and mechs. They have laser rifles and rail guns. They got giant mechs with tons of missile pods
Yes,
and
sir.
heavy rail rifles and rail guns and burst cannons and ion accelerators and void shields and all this stuff. And that is generally what the
Sounds
Tau's all
cool,
about.
but-
But you're probably thinking, Bricky, this doesn't sound that evil.
Yeah.
This doesn't sound very grim, dark Warhammer. And you'd be right. The Tau Empire really don't have that much of a horrifying,
kids.
grim, dark style like everybody else. They're much more
Kinda sad
younger,
about that.
new age thing. In fact, they're probably a lot less evil and a lot even better than they are now back in the day because they liked having like that good guy faction. But a lot of us who really like the dark, depressing style of Warhammer didn't really like it that much. So, see, the Tau get a lot of hate, and a lot of that hate isn't necessarily unjustified.
Don't wanna hate
It's
on
mainly from
them,
a tabletop
man,
perspective, but as you can see from all the visuals I've shown you recently, they don't really
Just
fit
not a fan,
in the
man.
40k universe very well. They lack that super dark, dramatic, kind of high gothic level the Imperium has. They don't have the weird kind of like
looks so
grungy
cool.
stuff that Chaos or
that Horus?
do. And the Necrons and the Eldar have their own specific style as well. The Tau really do look like something out of Gundam. And while that isn't necessarily a bad thing, it does definitely not fit too well. There's that. There's also the tabletop problem.
Very nice legs, by
In
the way.
tabletop, Tau are horrible at melee combat, but exceptionally good at range combat. So they blast everyone from really, really far away, and they have a million rules to make it so that it's nearly impossible for you to get into
sounds
melee
broken.
combat. So it basically just forces you to bottleneck the game into one specific gameplay style, which is gun to gun. And if you're doing gun to gun, they're going to win every time because they're the Tau, and the Tau are really damn good at shooting. So it's one of those things
you
that
need
make the Tau
orcs
generally
to
rather
win.
hated, and a lot of different reasons for that, both from style and such. But this is actually one of the things I wanted to end this video with, is that the Tau, while they have their issues, you should not be discouraged from playing them. I'll make plenty of Tau weeaboo jokes, of course I will, but it's all generally in good fun. Anyone who legitimately doesn't
understandable.
want you to play a faction is an idiot.
No,
You shouldn't
that's
be giving
stupid.
them the time of day. You pick what you think is cool and what you like. In Warhammer, especially now, factions get better and they get worse. They grow and then they fall. You should only be
Nerfs and
playing what
buffs.
you think is cool. You like the look,
That's
you
what it
like
is.
the models. If you're talking tabletop,
Oh, that's a big question I had. Is it basically like, I don't know a lot about Dungeons and Dragons, but there are those, it's Dungeons and Dragons version 1, version 2, version 3, those new rule books updating the rules, strength of monsters, is it like that? So can there be basically patches to the tabletop that change the strength of your army based on a new rule book, a new setting basically that is given to you that changes the values of things? Or is it since the beginning fix, these units have this strength, it is like exactly that and it will never change? Or is there some variation maybe every, I don't know, 10 years or so? Who knows? That was a big question I had.
that is what you should be going for every time, is what you think is badass, because things change all the time. But the universe of Warhammer has so much going for it. Every faction has something
Yes,
interesting.
man, that's
Every
so cool.
character has a story, and there's a million stories to be told. The universe is vast and exciting,
so
and while it's
badass
dark,
about them.
depressing, and horrible, that is the damn charm. And out of everything I've told you in these two videos, if anything you could take away is the reason why so many of us are so into this series and why we like it so much. Because with so much variety, such an expansive universe, and
Yes,
so much
man.
that can be done,
My biggest dream ever since I watched a couple of Warhammer 40k videos is just let there be a Warhammer 40k MMORPG. I think it would be so great, if you can choose your race and then go wide on it. The only problem with that is World of Warcraft already struggled with Horde and Alliance, where a lot of different races are based into two factions. a MMO with basically, 10 plus factions. A lot more than that, but let's say basically if there were 5 factions, it's already too much for an MMO. Because you need to communicate, you need to think, so you had to create a world where this is possible and makes sense. And that is the problem. I don't really see it possible here. But I'm very sad about this. And also, of course, MMO is basically the most expensive game you can create. And then it has to be good and has to be successful. So it's a huge risk. And Games Workshop already has a very well-running tabletop where they're pretty safe. Not safe, but you know what I mean. They have something very well established. And a lot of people are not super fond of most of their games. So their games can be a very good hit, but it can also be a very big miss. And if they miss with an MMO, they lose so many $1 million. I'm sad. But at least maybe if they could create something like... what I love... Yeah, I love Dragon Age back in the day. Dragon Age, where you start with... where you can pick many different races in the beginning. Basically, many different origins that you can choose from. And every single origin has their own starting plot, their own... Maybe if you pick an orc, you have an orc story that takes like 2 hours and is just for orc players. And if you pick Eldar, you have an Eldar story that is basically only for the Eldar and is very specific. Explains about the race and is very interesting, And then go into a grander story that could be shared between those different races, where the race doesn't matter, any whatever out there in the universe, but with different starting points, and every race has another storyline. I always thought it was super cool that there was such a specific start for everything. Also, like Star Wars: The Old Republic did it with a class quest that very, very often, in contrast if you see it to other games, but you had many of those quests in your level up journey only for your class, and the rest would be shared between other classes or races too, but you have this one specific quest line that's very individual to your race. That would be a very cool thing, and I know it's a bigger kind of game. It will take a lot of money, man, but I wish it was here. I wish I could play it, man, right now. I would jump in it straight after the video and I would play the shit out of it. Back then, I sank so many hours into Dragon Age.
You can find yourself having a pretty great time. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it has been
informative. I loved
to you.
it, Bricky.
If you'd like to see more of me, Bricky, we have twitch.tv
so good.
Bricky for my streams.
Oh, he streams.
You have my merchandise site in which
That's cool.
I was wearing all of my merch, but underneath this because I had to wear this so it wasn't black or white for the green screen, which is a little unfortunate, but it's
Makes
fine.
sense.
If you'd like to see merch, it is in the description. Also, if you'd like to support me on my Patreon page at patreon.com/Bricky for more videos like this, then that would also be wonderful.
Bricky.
So Twitch, merch, Patreon, anything if you want to support, that would be fantastic. I'd appreciate it. If not, I'm just stoked you got all the way to the end of the video, and that is enough for me. So, we'll be having some more content like this out in the future. Thank you so much for sticking around this long and being with me through this pretty rough time.
Yes, show me, guys. Show me.
That's, I think, all I got. Also, before I go, let me leave you with my favorite Warhammer quote.
Oh, yes.
He who scoffs at the power of the las gun has never ran through a field of 1,000 of them.
That makes a lot of sense. Bye, Mr. Bricky. And this was our journey with Bricky, every single faction explained. Man, it was a grand journey and I think I learned a lot. A lot of people told me there are some inaccuracies, stuff like that, but I mean, he made a series. He also, he took a lot of time to make this. It was very, very beginner friendly, I think. And that's the best thing. Even if there are inaccuracies, it's a very good series to get people hooked into the universe, I think. Maybe that is why a lot of people recommended this, because was what get people hooked. He has a lot of good jokes. He has good quotes. It goes from funny to serious to insane. It is very well made, very well thought out, and I just think it was a great piece of work. Now coming to maybe think about favorite factions, that is so hard. I couldn't tell you. Just from the video, I can tell you. I will do a lot more research and stuff like that. What I can tell you is that Tau for sure is on the very low end, because it's just not my style, man. It isn't, and it is not what got me hooked on Warhammer 40k. What I have to say though is orcs got a lot more interesting to me than just from what I heard at first. They went up. They were pretty low on my list, but they went up a lot. Then also Harlequins came out of nowhere. I had them not anywhere in my mind. This was the first time I saw them, and they were pretty amazing actually, because I might have a soft spot for them, but it is what it is. Also the Empire of Man. Oh, man, there's so many factions and stuff like that to pick. It's just bad, I will make my personal army not for play, but for myself, and I will pick just the coolest figures from all the races and make my little collection out of it. I won't focus on one race. No, that sounds bad, but I wish I could do that, kinda. The coolest models of all the different races and just put them together, man, and that is mine. I know that's not how you do it, but I wish I could, because they're all so good, but it's so expensive. And, oh, man, it's so bad. I still think Nurgle is maybe one of my favorite things I saw. So he's pretty high up there. The Tyranids, if I just looked at it from basically the 40k universe and nothing else, they would be middle of the line, I think. They would be pretty mid. Maybe even a little lower, but with my love for the Zergs, it's not objective. It's just, they're very high up there for me, because I just can't split them in my mind perfectly. But from all the stories and everything I heard, they are on the lower side. If I have to be honest, they are on the lower side, because they're just not that deep and interesting as some other races that are a lot more fleshed out. And with the rest, it's so hard. Also, the normal Elder, the Craft World Elder, would be a little lower for me. So I would say Orcs are a lot higher now. But Dark Elder was super interesting to me. Harlequins, super interesting. Chaos with Nurgle especially. Man, he rocked that shit. Love the Chaos. Love it. Not to be heresy. Not to be... he has no heresy or anything. But, it is what it is. I'm not... but yeah, that's basically... I can't tell you yet, I can't tell you yet my favorite race or anything. But this is like a light ranking. The Empire of Man is very split. I would say Mechanicus, I would rank low. Stuff like Chaos Space Marines, I would rank, depending on the, on which Primarch, very high actually. And it is, man. Also normal Space Marines and stuff like that. Some of them pretty high. It is very hard to pick for me. This universe is just very vast, very amazing, and yeah, I have to stop here. I will ramble on forever and ever and ever. We will watch more videos. We will get more into the lore, and maybe then I will figure out what is my spirit animal here, what has chosen me, but I'm still a huge fan of Nurgle. I'm not gonna lie. I want this Nurgle, or not Nurgle, but it's the Great Unclean. I want this figure for sure. I want it. It looks amazing. I saw it, looked it up. It's so good. But everything else, we will see. We will find out. That's all. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.